The following is a production of Pro Doug Shunts.
Welcome to a special episode of the Walk and Roll Live podcast. I am Doug Vincent. I am a polio survivor. Walked on crutches for years and transitioned to the wheelchair over the last 20 years or so. Can you believe it? It's been a whole year since we started this incredible journey. 1 year ago, we launched Walk and Roll Live, and the goal was to invite guests with disabilities to share their stories in the hope that it would help other people on the same journey with a healing process of their own. And I think that goes both ways. You know, the storyteller heals and the story listener can heal as well. So that's our hope. We had some amazing guests over the last year, and we've had some amazing organizations that provide programs and services for the disabled community. And I want to bring in my co-host now, Eric Aguilar. How are you doing, sir?
Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Eric Aguilar. I have cerebral palsy on the right side of my body. I'm hard of hearing in my left ear, and I'm a walking stick user. And you're right, Doug, what a year it's been. We've had the privilege of chatting with some amazing guests, sharing and inspiring their stories and learning so much along the way. And today, we're going to focus on them.
That's right. Today, we're going to take a trip down memory lane as we highlight some of the best moments from our past episodes.
But before we dive into them, I want to give a thank you to Aguilar Professional Training. Their support has been instrumental in helping us bring quality content every week.
Absolutely. And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in, sharing your feedback, recommending us to family and friends. We appreciate that very much, and being a part of our podcast community. Your support means the world to us.
So sit back and relax and enjoy the special highlight show as we celebrate our first year on Walk and Roll Live. Woo!
We're going to do it in a couple of different segments too. There's going to be a bunch of segments, but we're going to do it in two parts because all the highlights that I got over the last year, it would be like a 2-hour show. So we're going to break it up. So we'll do one episode today, and then we'll drop one again tomorrow. And first up is our guest and our buddy and our co-host, Eric Aguilar. We'll be back after a quick timeout from our sponsors, Aguilar Professional Training, and we'll get started on our celebration today.
Time for a coffee break, folks.
Introducing Aguilar Professional Training, where we believe your greatest asset is your team. Investing in their development, knowledge, and happiness is crucial for the success and growth of your business. To reach new heights, you need to hire smart, talented individuals and empower them to work in their areas of strength and passion. At Aguilar Professional Training, we're dedicated to helping your employees become happier, more productive, and fulfilled, because when your team thrives, your business thrives. We can help your workplace work better. We offer customized workshops and one-on-one coaching to help teams and leaders build trust and have better communication. We also offer strategic planning sessions, among other services. Elevate your team with Aguilar Professional Training.
You're listening to Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories.
This all began back in the late 80s in 1988 during the golden age of Super Nintendo and Game Boys. I was born prematurely. The doctors took me off the ventilator machine too early because they thought my lungs were mature enough. But unfortunately, they weren't, which gave birth to the origin of my own disability. Mm-hmm. I have the mild stage of cerebral palsy known as hemiplegia that affects only the right side of the body. And based on the research I found, it affects a lot of your muscle coordination. It goes hand in hand with epilepsy, which causes seizures and could affect one's learning disability or speech. I come from a family of 3 brothers that have cerebral palsy like me, but their stages are slightly different than mine. Like, one brother has it in both legs, which is known as hemiplegia. One has it in one leg, which is known as monoplegia.
So that's a similarity in our story, see, that I didn't know. You know, you have some siblings there, and I didn't really. My brother and I talked about this. I didn't really figure this out until years and years and years and years and later. But I'm talking decades. How important that is to have somebody right there along with you that understands what you're going through, right?
Right.
You know, you and your brothers, you can relate, and same thing with my brother. And what I I kind of compare it to is like twins. Twins have that bond and that connection because of their similarities. And it's kind of the same thing. When you share a disability with a sibling, there are so many times that it's like almost like an unspoken thing. We understand what each other's going through because there's so many similarities. But, I want to make sure that you have all the time you need to talk about this. Now, so what in your early life, how did that kind of start to, manifest itself? How did you see there were any limitations? What did you have to overcome? Those kinds of things.
Well, as a kid, I had very little understanding of the nature of my disability. And one day I asked my mom, why am I so different? And that kind of, broke her heart and caused her to cry that I would ask such a question. And in order for my mom to shield me from the truth, because back then I didn't think she really knew much about my disability either, or how we can cope with it, she said, honey, you're just special. And throughout childhood, I just kind of left it at that. But years later, as I came in through my adult years, I took up medical terminology over at Craft Mills College and did a project on my own disability. And what people didn't realize that I wasn't really seeking any cure, but I was doing my own research on my own disability and seeking out the answers that I've been seeking all the way back from childhood.
Yeah. I did the same thing. I forget fifth or sixth grade. We had a science fair, and we all had to do something. And I did polio. Just kind of trying to learn about its origins and how it affects you and all those things. So interesting how those parallels are the same as well. And it's just part of that growing up process, right?
And as I grew up, I overcame many obstacles because due to the nature of my disability, doctors told me that I would never walk, talk, or vaguely live past age 6. But to this day, I proved the doctors wrong. And as time went on, I developed a secondary disability, which indicates that I'm hard of hearing in my left ear.
Okay.
And then about a couple years ago, I slipped on some water in the kitchen and landed on my right femur, causing my arthritis in my right hip joint.
Yeah, so you touched on so many things there. Again, I don't want to I'm not trying to one up you, but it's not even up. It's parallels. Same thing. Doctors told me and my brothers that, we would never, because we used to have 2 full braces, and they said, this is going to be it. And, years later through some surgeries and hard work, I only have 1 brace, for the longest time. And, so I've learned that over the course of my life that now I know why they call it practicing. When they talk about doctors, their practice, because it seems like in so many ways, no offense, doctors, but as much as we know, there's so much they don't know. There's so many times that you hear where the doctors, make these prognoses and I've seen more times than not where people overcome them. Not going to walk. Yes, we are, we do. So how did you, where did that strength come from that you just to face those challenges and overcame them?
Over the years, not only underestimated, but they were close friends and family members and strangers that I came across my lifetime. Due to the nature of my disability, even today, a lot of people, try to say, I can't really do much or do anything due to the nature of my very own disability. But then I have a tendency to prove people wrong. Sometimes it makes them happy, but makes them.
So you have a little chip on your shoulder.
I guess you could say that.
You're using it in a good way, though.
Like throughout my adult years, I even have a tendency to wanting to prove people wrong all the time.
Sure.
And one of the philosophies that I live by these days is that I always say yes when life says no.
You're listening to Walk and Roll Live Disability Stories.
I did.
Car accident, right?
Yep. In 2009, was hit by a drunk driver. Broke L1 through 4 in my back. So did some pretty extensive rehab to kind of retrain my legs, and my son was in the car with me. So, went through that, but obviously I ended up, getting through that. I had a lot of great support and doctors, physical therapists, and things like that. So, but yeah, that was definitely, that was not a fun time.
And then cancer struck.
Yep. Had my dealings with that. And I went through all of that while I was working at the radio station. And there may be people that listen to your podcast now that, had no idea. If someone asked, I wouldn't lie, but it was not anything that I just would openly discuss. I mean, I went through my treatments. I took vacation time. I did things so that I could have a long weekend to recover. I never went on medical leave. That's kind of what kept me going, and I mean, I had a wonderful boss, and obviously he knew what I was going through and was very supportive and was always willing to help me out to do whatever it is that he felt like I needed, there were days when he would kind of force me to shut it down and go home.
I can understand that.
Yeah. But working was really what kept me going.
Yeah.
It's what helped the most.
I'm glad you brought that up because, you were very fortunate in that you had, a boss that would accommodate you like that.
Yes.
And even though it's a part of ADA and they have to make accommodations for you, you didn't have to fight for it.
Exactly.
But there are people that, aren't as fortunate to have that kind of situation and they have to fight for it. See, I'm sure for yourself, with the medical background that you had and being an advocate for patients, you were a good advocate for yourself. So that worked out well for you. And other people don't have that background and they need help like that. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about that. So cancer-free today?
Yep.
Yeah, all good. Good.
Yep, all good.
So then the next whammy. What's about that? I'm glad you could laugh and smile now. First of all, I'll say that you were diagnosed with MS.
Yes.
Right. So what was like some early indications that, something was amiss here?
I started looking back. I know what the symptoms were.
Yeah.
One of the biggest, I think, symptoms that I had was what they call now, what my neurologist and what I know it to be is drop foot. I kind of felt like this is a residual of my car accident. Working out, running on the treadmill when I couldn't run outside. I would notice my right foot kind of sometimes scraping. So nothing like really that stood out, nothing like I hear other people's stories where, they're in such a state of symptoms that they're actually hospitalized. I had 2 bouts where I got up from a seated position and I felt like the room was spinning. Like I literally had to just kind of drop to the floor, sit down because I didn't want to fall over.
Yeah.
And it happened twice. And I remember going to see my chiropractor and I told him about it. And I asked him, I'm like, is that normal? And he just kind of laughed and shook his head. And he was like, no, that's not normal. And he's like, you should really schedule an appointment with a neurologist and just get checked out. And I was like, to me at the time, I'm like, that seems kind of extreme, like a neurologist. But I was like, okay, so I did. And I think within the first 5 to 10 minutes in the neurologist's office, he knew exactly what he was dealing with. He ran a battery of tests to rule things out, but basically ran an MRI from my brain all the way down to my, lower back. That's kind of where it started.
I mean, what's your initial thoughts? You kind of go through that denial and anger and all of those things?
Yeah. I mean, I got the MRIs. I got the phone call from the doctor, that token phone call where it's like, well, you need to come back in to see the doctor, not like, oh, everything's fine. The doctor sat me down, and a great neurologist. Like I said, I think he knew within the first 5 minutes of speaking with me that what I was dealing with. But his bedside manner was absolutely awful. He sat me down and he had my scans on the computer, and he left them there for a minute after he kind of just blurted out, you have multiple sclerosis and, the scans, and see these things on the scans. And then he got up and he walked out of the room for a minute and then came back in. His specialty was not MS, and he did not feel comfortable taking my case, but I didn't even know what it was. Like the very first thing when he said it, I asked him, does this have something to do with my car accident? I
was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And he just kind of chuckled a little bit and shook his head. And he's like, no, he's like, it's an autoimmune disease, a neurological disease. But I don't really handle those cases. I'm going to refer you out to someone else. And so it was a lot of research on my own, because there was probably a 4-week period before I got to see the other doctor to really get answers and figure out what my course of action was, that I kind of had to research things on my own. And with that, I think at the time I was like, this is kind of, this isn't the best scenario, but it also gave me an opportunity to go into my next appointment with a lot of questions. You have to be an advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
You just absolutely have to be. You cannot rely 100% on your doctors or the healthcare system or anything. You have to work with them, but you have to advocate for yourself. So yeah, everything ended up working out, but at the time it was rough. It was rough watching my family's reaction, because I think they knew more than I knew. So here I am kind of trying to navigate in the dark, and it's like they're the outsiders looking in, and they're like, oh my gosh, like that was really hard. It was really hard to watch, to talk to my son about it, to watch his reaction. My husband is a rock. He's solid. It has been from day one. I'm the youngest. And so watching my dad's reaction, even to this day, it's very difficult. It's really hard. My dad is super, super tough. And so, but I can't even imagine, like you, I couldn't imagine having that kind of news, a diagnosis for my son like that. I don't know what I would do.
So what was that like at the very beginning? What are some of the things that, you really struggled with?
I have a very aggressive form of MS. So in the beginning, even though I had this diagnosis and I had these symptoms, I thought, okay, well, I'm still working out. I'm still doing the things that I was doing the day before I was diagnosed, staring kind of down this barrel of the gun, if you will, thinking like, my doctor's telling me like the things that I should be looking for, maybe the things that could happen. As time has gone on, now I'm going on 5 years this October, and things definitely have progressed. I do everything that I can do every day. I still am able to work out, but I'm not able to work out like I worked out before. So saying goodbye to those parts of your life, that's been a really difficult struggle for me. We were talking about, before being out of the workforce, being forced to take an early retirement. In so many ways, it's such a blessing. But at the time, it was like, wait, what? I did. I really had like a good cry. It's kind of with this diagnosis, I've kind of had to go through the, like the 5 stages of grief, just saying goodbye to certain parts of who I was before and trying to navigate this. I don't want to say like a new person, but it kind of almost is.
Sure.
It's just
a new version of you.
Yeah. And sometimes in coming, the way that I look at it, it's not a great version. It's not the worst, but it's not a great version. So it's definitely it's a tough road to navigate.
You're listening to Walk and Roll Live Disability Stories.
One day of little extracurricular activities and some, I was at the King of Hammers, really. So you heard of the King of Hammers?
Yes, it sounds familiar.
It's up in Johnson Valley, and it's where the cars climb the rocks and stuff like that.
Okay,
Up near that dry lake bed, near
the rock climbing
that end
vehicles.
of the Johnson Valleys. And I went climbing that earlier that day, went rock climbing earlier that day, and I barely made the climb that day. And then I went for one at night, and that's where I woke up 18 days later out of a coma. I fell 80 feet free climbing. So,
yeah.
Well, my fault, but that's why I'm not angry. A lot of people are angry, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Well, and I appreciate you coming on and being candid and telling your story. And that's one of the things I think we're going to learn, if we haven't started to already over the course of doing these, is that everybody's journey is very, very personal. And there are people that are very angry, and there are people that process it quicker, and there's no right or wrong way. I think just everybody has their path, and
for sure.
So
I used to cry every time I talked about it. I thought I was good. I'd get in front of somebody at Loma Linda. I'd be like, bah, bah, bah. I mean, now I've learned to digest it a little bit more and deal with it, in your own way. But it's almost a mourning process. So
yes, yeah.
At the end of it, but yeah, I broke T789, collapsed a lung. I had 2 skull fractures. My head was shaved when you met me, but the scars you could see, it was in a coma 18 days. It was a fun ride, at first. So, you wake up out of that and you're like, what?
Yeah,
legs don't work.
Did you have a recollection of the fall itself?
No, I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
It's funny. The doctor's like, well, good thing you were a little inebriated, because if you weren't, you would have had so much more of an injury. And I looked at the guy. I was like, I remember laying in the bed, like, I'd have made the climb, bruh. Like,
you're right. Yeah, wouldn't have to worry about the injuries. That's good.
Interesting take from that guy.
Yeah.
Dr. Lee was his name. I'll never forget him. What's funny is when I went to work afterwards, he was sitting in the same Ballard. When I went into Ballard, he was sitting there, and he was like, what are you doing here? And I was like, a man's got to work, dummy. Like, so it was kind of interesting. Same guy who was my physical therapy, like PT doctor at Kaiser. But
so let me ask you real quick too. So it sounds like you came through it really well, obviously really well, but
my head injury was worse than the back injury.
Yeah.
So my head, I was just like which was a blessing, because I was, I was 26 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was September 25th, 2000. So, I was 26 years old, and I was wild. I rock climbed, and I free climbed, and I cliff dived, and I did those things that adrenaline was my drug of choice.
Yeah.
So for me to be mild in the hospital was a kind of a blessing, but it was me not being me, upset.
Yes.
I lost my sense of smell from it. I've cracked the back, kind of messed up cranial nerve number 1. The olfactory nerve controls that, but my memory is a little bit different. Studying through college was a little different, but I was off. And then one day, like, you get home and you're like, I need to go home. Then you get home and you're like, I need to go back to the hospital. I'm not ready to be home. You realize that, hey, I don't have the money to make this house the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So
right.
you have to learn how to adapt, which kind of helped me to where I'm at now, because now I'll go anywhere. I have a handicap room? Cool. I'll jump anywhere. I'll do anything.
Well, those are the things that we've talked about too here. So I'm glad you pointed it out. Was people that before an injury, they have a personality type, like you said. You rock climbed. That was that was where you got your adrenaline, which was something you needed in your personality. Well, just because you have an accident doesn't mean that goes away. You still are that same guy, right?
That's right, man.
I still ripped my shoulder and busted my head open in Big Bear bombing a hill out there by the Discovery Center. There's a trail out there you can push. And actually, I came around with one of the kids from the team. He was going to college, and I was like, hey, you need to learn how to do other things than play basketball in your chair, because, you're going to find somebody of of the opposite sex, you just don't want to watch you play basketball, bruh.
Yeah.
You want to do things, and you want to know that you can go and do. It's not just doing hand things.
Yeah.
You can still do everything with the able bodies. And he kept getting in front of me, and I kept telling him, "Get out of the way. I've been pushing this trail longer than you've been alive, son." And I came around the corner, and he was right in front of me. I grabbed the back of his chair. He got squirrely. I was like, "Oh no!" And he went into the sand, and I flipped up over him, and I landed like this, and like kind of on my left shoulder, and then bounced my head off the asphalt.
Ooh.
Busted my head open. I was laying there bleeding. He was like, "Coach, you okay?" And I was like, "You know what I feel, son? Alive." And I was like, "Hey, it's okay, bud. It's not the first time I've bled. It's not the last. Let's just regain ourselves." We were about 4 miles in, had a couple miles back to the truck. So, what's funny is these 2 chicks picked me up, and I was like, "No, you're not going to be able to do it. I weigh 260 pounds on this chair, blah, blah, blah." They were like, "No, we got it." They picked me up. I was like, "Heck yeah."
Nice.
I've seen 2 grown men struggle doing that. Like,
right.
they had knapsack. They were all wiping me off. I was like, "It's good. I'm going to bleed all the way back to the truck." It's okay.
Head wounds, they bleed.
Adrenaline, though, like, yeah, still, I should probably wear a helmet.
You're listening to Walk and Roll Live Disability Stories.
Life was easy, breezy. And then when I was working as a pharmacy tech, I actually got pregnant with my son, which is, he's 20 years old and he's on the spectrum. And I stopped working at that point. I really, really wanted to focus on taking care of my children, making sure they had the best teacher, because you are the first teacher that your children see. You are the one that is going to have the most faith and the most understanding of how they are and what they need. Yeah. So I began my journey with my son. He wasn't diagnosed right away. Of course, some of the symptoms sort of seem like just male characteristics, like, hyperactivity, not, focusing on eye contact and things like that. And just behaviors that are different from my daughter.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about. What were those early things that you kind of started to notice that something wasn't.
I noticed that my daughter was a lot of, girls are a little different. They say girls are a little bit more fast learners, and they want to be teachers and they want to be leaders. And boys are a little bit more, mischievous. So that's what I had to compare it with my whole life. Your gender identity. You're thinking that since your child is a boy, he's not going to be like your daughter. So some of those characteristics were overlooked early on, and nowadays we really want to focus on noticing these characteristics at an early age, because the earlier you get help, the better. The earlier you get help for autism, the earlier you get screened, the earlier you get into speech therapy and behavior therapy and all these wonderful things that they have out there for them, the better chance that they have to feel, because it's not about looking normal. It's not about being normal. None of us are really normal. We're all individuals.
Do you think a lot of people, parents, meaning a lot of parents are maybe in denial and they don't want to really,
they don't want to admit to what it is,
to what they're seeing.
It's going to go away. It's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse. If
if it turns out not to be, your child isn't on the spectrum, no harm, no foul. You haven't heard anything, right? So if you have some suspicions, if it's going to be, then earlier is better.
Yeah, there's ways to screen outside of doctor's offices, because some places are not used to, are not aware of some of the characteristics, and that's why they call it spectrum. It's such a big, giant, detailed characteristics that it could possibly be. Yeah. And there's different levels. Not every 2 cases are the same.
Now, let me ask you here at this point, did you learn this? I mean, you seem so, fluent in this and so confident in all of this, but at that point, what was it like? I mean,
at that point back then, I knew nobody on the spectrum.
Yeah.
I didn't even know why my child was acting this way. I just knew that I had to help him.
Yeah. So where did you reach out first? Did you talk to your pediatrician?
So I actually got misdiagnosed early on.
Mhm.
I had an ear, nose, and throat specialist that told me that my son was um had some other delays, but that
Yeah.
were extremely harming to my soul because
Yeah.
that's my son. I know
Yeah.
my son. I know my son from everybody in this world. I spend every day, every night with them, every hour. So for someone to come in and 1 second just take a look at him and have a diagnosis that was improper and
Yeah.
harming to
Yeah.
my how I felt as a parent, I thought it wasn't compassionate as a healthcare provider.
Yeah.
So
Which
this is
is
what I
a
want to
valuable lesson, and a
Yeah.
valuable lesson that caretakers such as yourself, whether it be for an elderly parent or whatever the case may be, you have to be an advocate. You have to be a strong advocate.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
we could fill hours with stories of what I've heard people go through because of those misdiagnoses. Some life threatening, some people that were left paralyzed from, thank God temporarily, from some misdiagnosis. So yes, you don't necessarily, if you don't feel that it's the right diagnosis, you have to, step up and say something. That's your right. So I'm sorry.
Yes, that's your right
I'll
as a parent.
get off my soapbox. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and you look for, the answer in your heart.
Yeah.
You keep looking. You don't give up on your child. You are somebody you love, because you know what? You are the person that is going to help that. No, they don't go home with them every night. They'll
Right.
not come home, and they don't have to deal with anything. They just write it down on a piece of paper and call it a day, and they get paid.
Yeah.
I mean, that's okay too, because if we don't know, we can't help others.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I'm here, and I really want to speak to parents and say, you know what? And it's not the end of the world if your child has autism. It's not. It's just you finding a different path than your other children, or a different path to follow to help that child. Because believe it or not, I had the most amazing time with my son. He is the most amazing, free-hearted, big-hearted, no limitation, because he doesn't know limits like us. We self-sabotage ourselves.
No fear, right?
Yes, fear. Fear will stop you dead in your tracks.
Yeah.
He knows no fear. He's like, I'm the best artist in the world. And, and I wish I had that.
Yeah.
It's not a disability. I said, you are amazing. Like, I wish I had that superpower you have.
You're listening to Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories.
Now, was this in high school that you?
No, 22. I was just out of high school, getting ready to go back to school.
Gotcha.
Finish up a degree, but I'm trying to get on the wrestling team. Just practicing with one of my buddies, and I slipped wrong and was like, oh God. And then, here's that story. And then I'm laying there on my back, and I felt like my legs were in the air, like if a dog was laying on his back, I looked down. I could still move my neck. I looked down, and I saw that my legs were flat. I'm like, uh-oh, got a problem, Batman.
Yeah.
So
this don't
got
feel
in the
right.
ambulance. No, yeah, I got in the ambulance. But the crazy part about it, there was no pain. My body went into shock right away. I didn't feel any pain. I was laying there talking like, okay, get me up. Don't when they coming, It was like never, dude, the break, it didn't hurt.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I don't know what happened, but yeah.
Orthopedic doctors and stuff probably can explain all that, but
nobody's ever been able to explain. It was like, because that's what I tell people. I'm like, they're like, did it hurt? And I'm like, dude, I felt nothing. It's crazy.
So other people that have experienced the same thing didn't feel that lack of pain that you've talked to?
So in wheelchair circles, it never gets brought up. Nobody cares what happened.
Right. Yeah, I hear you.
Come on, dog. Let's go. We got to go.
Yep. You're absolutely right.
And it's like, no, because like I told people that, but they're like, wow, that's crazy. But no, I've never met anybody else who didn't hurt. Yeah, I don't know. Because I've never even asked that question to wheelchair.
Yeah.
We don't talk about wheelchair stuff in wheelchair groups.
You're absolutely right. The only people that ask you are non-wheelchair or non-handicapped people, non-disabled people.
Only ones. Like, yeah, it's like they want it. It's like you're a TV show for them. TV's ruined us. Like, ooh, let's see his TV show. They want to know. Yeah. That was the craziest part. First bone, and it didn't hurt. So yeah, wheelchair life started out. Oh God, it was like it's the adjustment. You're like, whoa,
Yeah.
because I'm a quad, really. So I mean, I got all these muscles or whatever, but I'm a quad. So I got one good hand and one crap hand, and my left is of course my good hand. You know, it's a right hand man's world. Jesus, everything's hard.
I know.
But
Were you
yeah,
left-handed, right-handed before, or
we don't know because of the scissor situation. You know, because I write better with my left hand than I ever did with my right.
yeah? So,
But
but
and then my
previously you were
brother's a
right-handed.
lefty.
So
Yeah, my
growing up, you
brother's
were
a
right-handed.
lefty. Who knows? I think I got forced righty though. You know, I'm a
Yeah,
child
yeah.
of the '80s. I'm 45 years old, coming up on the first. I'm getting old,
Wow.
man. Jeez.
Yeah.
So it was
I know the
22
feeling, dude.
though.
This has been half your life, right? Over half your life.
Yes, that's the
Yeah.
crazy part. So it's like
Yeah.
it was cool that I think it was you. I mean, for me, looking back on it, starting at 22 was better than starting as a teenager because I'd already been out of the house.
Gotcha.
Because I feel like now when I see people in chairs, if they weren't gone living alone, they're never gonna go. You know what I mean? Because it's
Yeah, I
too
gotcha.
hard. It's
Yeah.
already hard enough for an able-bodied person to do it. For a disabled person to do it, though,
You're blowing my mind a little bit, because as I do many times, of course, in these interviews, I kind of compare it to my own experience. I grew up with it, so I didn't go through that mental part of it.
hmm
It just was, and I never give it a second thought that what I've accomplished is anything, to tell you the truth. It's
yeah,
just, I grew up, and I've told the story here. You get to 14 or 15 years old, and I start to think, I'm going to have to make a living someday.
yeah,
How am I going to do that? What am I going to do? There's things I can't do. Obviously, they're just off the table, no two ways about it. But, so then I have to pick within the things that I possibly can do, blah,
hmm
blah, blah, and, so now for somebody, so I kind of have time, and I've learned to live in the world for now
hmm
at that point 14 or 15 years. But if it's like boom, one day, that's a great distinction. I never really heard that perspective. So yeah, if you come to that disability before you're out of the house as opposed to
yes,
being after, interesting, very interesting.
yes,
Yeah,
super. Because it's like first you're like, whoa, because you moved out for a reason. You're like, okay,
right.
okay, I can't do this no more. I
Yeah.
can't live with my parents no more. And then you're like, I'm forced back. It was like, oh no, this is
Yeah,
crazy.
so you've had a taste of the independence.
Yes. Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once
Yeah.
you had that freedom,
You
can't give
fight
it up.
back to it.
I
Yeah.
ain't giving my
Yeah.
driver's license back. No way. But the crazy part is that you said about being thrown into it. So dude, I don't know. I heard Eric and then talk about it, and I heard everybody else. It's fine. You are insane for the first 30 days, dude. I had a halo on, dude. Another
Mm-hmm.
halo on. They're telling me I got to get out of here in 27 days, and I'm going home with this thing. I'm like, okay, that was just the new road ahead. Then I'm thinking, oh God, how am I gonna make money? Dude, you go insane. You go insane. I believe that we're mentally disabled. We are like patent patients at a certain point. Patton State Hospital, for y'all don't
Yeah.
know, it's a
Yeah.
state institution. The
Yeah.
Eagles was talking about it. They don't let you leave, but you can check in or whatever, whatever. But so after you get out of rehab, you need to go to Patton for maybe 30 days and have them work on your psyche
Yeah.
because you gotta
Once you get out of
process
physical
this.
rehab.
Yes, yes. Once you get,
Gotcha.
because this is a mental game. This is all
Yeah.
mental.
Yes. Yes.
Once you
Yes.
sit your mind that you got this, you got this. But if you don't know how to sit your mind that you got this, you got this, you ain't gonna do it. And it's like it's hard. It was, yeah. I mean, they're all, everybody like downplays it. Yeah, it was hard. No, it was hard. I mean, I'm not gonna, mess it up for the kids. I want the kids to listen to, but it was
Right.
real, hard. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was
Yeah. I mean, you got to be real.
everything changed. Everything changed. Your girl's gone. Ha ha ha. Just forget about her. I mean, I know everybody's like, oh yeah, yeah. She's the first one. Whoever you're with is gone because it's too much of a change in paradigm.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they knew you as one person. You are a completely different person. That's what I meant to say too. You are not the same person for a
Yeah.
while. it takes you years. Sometimes people never get it back, but it takes you years to get back to where you even think about your walking days. You have so much on your plate.
Mm-hmm.
It is very difficult. And then, yeah, you're insane though. You go insane, 100%.
So was there anybody there to help you through that? I mean, I know there's like your injury was pre-possibilities, right? An organization like that has one of the first things is peer support. Some guy comes rolling into your room practically on day 1 or 2 or 3 and, is going to kind of guide you a little bit, but you had none of that. Yeah. Or no?
Yeah, it happened to me. And it was RJ, just like Daniel Bonnell, just like Eric said. And he had that Z71 he jumped into. You're like, okay. My girlfriend had met him at the Rosa Maria's, this place she went for burritos. So I didn't get the hospital introduction to it. She randomly met him. She was like, dude, my boyfriend just broke his neck. Can you go visit him or whatever? And, RJ, that's what that's his gig. He did. And that's who, dude, he's a catalyst. He changed a lot of lives. He's passed on right now. He passed away right now. He died a couple years back.
I don't think I heard that.
But yeah, me and RJ were tight all the way till the end, though, man.
Yeah. Good.
I mean, that's a story that's my podcast story, but that was kind of a tragedy. For all the good he did, what happened to him was pretty bad. But I mean, that makes me sad. Next, the RJ came through and showed me like, okay, this guy's got it. Just like Eric said, RJ wasn't like a big dude. He was just this real skinny dude, So it's like, hold on, I got more muscle than that guy. Okay, I can do this too, baby. And that's, dude, me and RJ, let's see, Eric, he introduced Eric at the hospital, right? Me and RJ, he started me playing wheelchair rugby. We used to go push on the streets together, me and RJ. RJ got me on the team. He used to drive me to practice down in San Diego, pick me up at my house, slap me in a rugby chair. He completely changed my life. 100%. Makes me all teary. But
yeah.
Without RJ, oh God, I don't know where I would be, because that rugby is the sports that got me back.
Yeah.
But because if I would never found this sport,
I'm sorry, real quick, but that's one of those things that I hear again and again, and one of the things that I really kind of learned just being exposed through possibilities through the wheelchair basketball team. Had a chance to play rugby a little bit, just recreationally. You better be in shape when you get out there, just so you know. Thank God I was at the time, But when you've had some kind of an injury that's caused your disability, that person that you were before, that part of you is still the same person. You know what I mean? If you're an athlete, you still kind of have that athletic mindset. Or if you're a thrill seeker type that likes to bungee jump or do whatever, and that doesn't just suddenly go away, and it still is there afterwards. Yeah, I mean, maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Whatever happens to you, you're still exactly this. You still got the exact same eyes, lips, nose, teeth.
Yep.
Unless you lose a couple. No, I'm kidding. You got everything's the same. So but it's mental. You have to get that. That's the mental part. You got to get back to being the athlete, because it's like, okay, like and that's what I say. I went into the psychiatrist. So my mom was not letting it happen. She sent me to the psychiatrist. So I got to go talk to someone about it, and it was cool. I don't even know if I really needed her. I just needed to say things out loud to someone else, just verbalize it. So I'm not sitting there talking to myself.
Yeah.
And her feedback was, la, 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 whatever. But it was like, just saying it out loud. Just go say it out loud to somebody who's not going to tell nobody about it. Yeah. I mean, she's telling her friends all about it, but you don't know, you're supposed to be, doctor, private guy. So you got, it's almost, but that's it. Just go talk it out with someone who don't know you too.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, it's hard. Don't go to familiar people, because they have a empathy for you already. And they're not going to be like, nah, shut up.
They're going to pull punches.
Yeah, exactly.
You're listening to Walk and Roll Live Disability Stories.
Kind of walk us through that. I mean, you weren't, fighting a long illness, or no. So it was kind of unexpected, to say the least.
Yeah, it was really unexpected. I've been type 2 diabetic since 40 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that was always there. And at the time they told me that, I went to this doctor and he said, you're pre-diabetic. You might want to watch out for that. That was it.
Yeah.
So I just like, okay, put it in the back of my head and moved on. We didn't have all the commercials on TV where everybody's got some kind of illness and stacked on top of each other. So I didn't know anything about diabetes. I had
no recommendations on changing your diet or anything.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing. So I went on with that, and over the years, it kind of built up to the point where my feet, I don't know what you call it, plantar fasciitis or something like that. Basically, I have flat feet.
Okay.
And I have to wear orthotics. And as I told you before, I was doing some housework around the house. I think Christmas lights or something like that.
Yeah.
And I stepped off of the ladder wrong. And when I did, I felt the bones inside my foot kind of shift.
Yeah.
And I was told that my bones were never going to go back to the way they were. And this was before I stepped off the ladder. And they would always move and do things like that. So anyway, the foot started to swell up a little bit and started to turn, and it just wasn't right. So I called the doctor and went in to have it checked out. And he says, "Okay, yeah, you got some issues here. I'm going to send you over to the emergency room, and they're going to take care of that." All right, good. So I go over to the ER, and doctors come in, they consult and this and that, and they said, "Okay, we're going to perform the amputation tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock." I went, "Amputation? What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, your foot, it needs to come off. It's starting to get infected. You've got sepsis and all this other, different things."
Yeah.
And it just like it blew me away. I had no clue that this was even supposed to happen. So I called the first doctor back, and he said, "Well, yeah, I thought that might happen, but that's."
So he didn't prep you
No.
for the possibility at all.
No.
Wow.
It was just go over there and they'll take care of you. So the next morning, I had the amputation, and it was probably one of the worst moments of my life.
Sure.
Just because you take for granted that you're going to get up and walk on 2 feet.
Yeah. Yep.
And so that was it. Now there's more to that story, which we'll get to in a minute. But prior to this, my wife Christy was working, and I had retired. And when I retired from work, my money job, I was exhausted, and I spent probably a week in bed, just relaxing and getting myself back up to shape and going on. Well, she was getting tired and worn out, and then she retired probably about 4, 5, 6 months after I did. And she came home and she went to bed, and she said, "I'm just so tired. I don't know what to do." I said, "Well, this happened. This was me. Don't worry about it." But it kept going on and on and on. So finally, she went to the doctor, and he did a blood test on her, and he called her in, and he said, "You've got a serious problem. I'm putting you in touch with a blood doctor." They found out she had this disease called aplastic anemia. In short, it's where your body stops producing red blood cells, and the white blood cells just start eating what's there until there's nothing left. Organs start to fail, and basically you die. So they said, "Okay, we're going to have to do a bone marrow transplant." When you're going to do something like a bone marrow transplant, there's got to be 10 markers. There are 10 markers that should be met in order to do it from one person to another. I think there are a couple that are like maybe you can get by without them, but so they put in this request to this place called Be the Match. The people came in one day and they said, we got a match. It's a perfect match. 10 out of 10. We said we can't tell you who it is because of privacy issues, but they are giving you the bone marrow and it'll be here tomorrow. And it's like, holy smoke. So they took it from this person, and they got on an emergency flight from, well, it turned out to be Germany, to the United States, here to Cedars-Sinai. They walked in with that bag of marrow. It was just like gold, you know. It was an answer to a prayer. And we found through a little bit that we knew she was 27. We knew she was from Germany. And we knew that she had never been pregnant, because if you've been pregnant, you're out. Those were the three things we knew. So they infused her, they got the transplant. It kept going up and down, and we almost lost her a couple of times. It was quite a struggle. But long story short, she started to get better. We got in touch with the lady that gave us the transplant. Her name is Aline in Germany. And since then, she has come to visit us a couple of times. We've gone to Germany to visit them. We were part of her wedding there, and she is just part of the family now.
You're a match, and you ask, and she says yes.
Yeah. And her story was so good. She's a very competitive person. She was a world competitor in karate, but they told her, and she was in training with her coach for another huge competition. And she got the call, and she told her coach, said, I'm out, gotta go. And he was like really upset. And they told her, the transplant, you can't do the karate. You won't be able to be that physical anymore. So she gave up that entire career. They had to give it up.
Wow.
But as soon as they called her and said, we need you, she went in that day. They pulled out the marrow, shipped it over. And it was just, it was such an unselfish thing to do. Christy is getting better and better and better. She still needs care, but she's getting better and better. And then I have to go into this for this amputation. And I go into a rehab center for 3 months. During that time, she is still in the healing process and cannot get around other people. We couldn't see our grandkids for a year. We had that hard time where I was her emotional support through that period of her. And then all of a sudden, I needed the emotional support.
Yeah.
And she couldn't come and do it. I mean, we talked on the phone several times a day. But, you know, it's...
So you guys were even separated during this time?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah,
No.
Okay.
I was not separated from her during her recovery until I had the amputation. And then I was in the rehab center for 3 months.
Okay.
She did not come to that. You want your support, and God bless her. She did what she could.
Yeah.
We talked on the phone every day. Her sisters came by and helped me and stuff, but she couldn't. So I went through the whole thing, and finally they sent me home after that, and still had to come in and do cleaning of the wound and all that other stuff. But it was funny because when I was in the hospital or the recovery, I got through the first day of the shock of what happened. Second day, I was still in shock. And I guess I had some of my organs that were starting to fail, kidney problems and stuff like that. So the doctors were still in and treating that. But on that third day, I just said, you know, this is it. This is life. I got to get moving. So I think mentally, I started to will myself to get better, even though the doctors were all working on me. But yeah, I knew I was going to make it.
That is great to hear all those amazing stories again. That's all we've got for today, but that's not all. We've got a whole nother show tomorrow that we will drop right here. We're going to take a quick break from Walk and Roll Live, and then we'll be right back. Eric and I will wrap up.
Exciting news, folks. We've spiced up Walk and Roll Live with a fantastic new feature on our website that's bound to elevate your podcast experience. Ever fancied having a lively chat about our episodes as if you were chatting with your best buddy? Well, guess what? Now you can. Our episodes have gone interactive, eagerly awaiting your questions and banter. Dive into a chat with our podcast and let's spark some engaging conversations.
Give it a whirl and drop us a line with your thoughts.
Check out these awesome features.
Check it out at walkandrolllive.com.
You're listening to Walk and Roll Live Disability Stories.
Well, there is the first half of our 1-year anniversary show, and there's so much more to come. We'll do that tomorrow. We'll drop those, all right? So some of the things that we're looking forward to for year number 2 is we went to the Triumph Wheelchair Expo this past weekend, and we got some great interviews from a bunch of different vendors that were there that support our community. Also went to Brewabilities a couple of weeks ago. I don't think we've had a chance to share those interviews with you, but we'll get those on in a show probably next week. And then, Eric, I haven't shared this with you, I don't believe, but a friend of mine, actually back 40 plus years ago, when I lived in San Luis Obispo, I was a volunteer with the March of Dimes, and there was this young lady who was their poster child, and every time we went out to an event, she was kind of that focal point, and she was a great gal, and she had a great family, and I just kind of became a part of the family. Well, I get a message a couple of weeks ago on Instagram that says, "Are you the same Doug Vincent that was a DJ in San Luis Obispo years and years and years ago?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Well, it turns out to be this young lady, all grown up. So I had a chance to catch up with her, and we talked for a bit, but I invited her to come on the show to tell her story and kind of catch up on the air. So we'll do that in a couple of weeks too, as well. So you've got that to look forward to. And then there's a number of other events that I put up on the website, a couple new resources from some of the folks that we met at Triumph. So USARC is up there. There's an archery resources, for disabled folks. And there's also Angel City Sports, I believe is what it's called. So a lot of sports in the Los Angeles area for adaptive sports. So anything coming up on your radar? How you been?
Well, I graduated from Leadership and Management School with the Coast Guard Auxiliary on May 12th. It's been a month-long class, but I feel like it's been 6 months. And then on June 24th will be my last day with the Self-Advocacy Leadership Academy, and the virtual graduation commences on July 1st. And then I have 3 more dates of doing emergency preparedness with Loma Linda Possibility this year. Like I have June 11th, I have August 12th, and then as much as I don't want to do the last one, it's on my birthday, November 12th, and anniversary with my beloved sweetheart.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Right back there when you mentioned Angel City, I had the privilege of actually doing it virtually when they called it the virtual Angel City Games during the beginning and rise of COVID. And the gal you were mentioning back there, I have a handful of friendships that are like that to this day. And just the other day, I was telling my lifelong friend that me and her are just only the handful of people who age like fine wine and still hold up.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, she sent me a few pictures. She lives back in Georgia now, but she was home visiting her family in San Luis Obispo a few weeks ago. And I don't know if that kind of resparked it, but she was looking through family albums and saw pictures of me. And we'll share this in the interview, but very sweet. But there's pictures of me that I've been sharing around with my friends and family. I'll have to put them up on our website, and people can check them out and see Doug with hair and all that good stuff. So, all right, we'll wrap up today's celebration, and then please join us tomorrow as we do day 2 of our celebration of our first anniversary at Walk and Roll Live. Thank you again so much. Don't forget to like and follow and subscribe. And I'm going to give you the last word, Eric.
Take care, guys.